Morning. I now invite the Council to hear the national voluntary presentations by Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, the Philippines, and Zambia, and I would like to acknowledge and welcome the following distinguished high-level presenters. Her Excellency Ms. Damira Niazalieva, Vice Prime Minister of Kyrgyzstan. His Excellency Mr. Ganchok Kherbata, State Secretary, Ministry of Finance of Mongolia. His Excellency Mr. Arsenio Balisacan, Socio-Economic Planning Secretary of the Philippines. And His Excellency Mr. Christopher Mbunga, Deputy Minister of Finance of Zambia. I would also like to welcome Mr. Michael Shank, Director of Media Strategy, Climate Nexus, who will be our moderator this morning. In connection with the four presentations from Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, the Philippines, and Zambia, the Council has before it documents E/2015/62, E/2015/61, E/2015/60, and E/2015/63, respectively. Allow me now to hand over the floor to our moderator to introduce our distinguished presenters and to conduct the proceedings of these presentations and the subsequent interactive discussion. Mr. Shank, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. So I'm aware that a pre-10 a.m. meeting is tough for the UN, so I thank all of you for arriving before 10 a.m. for our early start to a robust morning. My name is Michael Shank. I've moderated these NVPs, National Voluntary Presentations, before. I'm very excited to be back. I want to thank ECOSOC for hosting this important conversation, and this is an auspicious moment. This is the last of the NVPs for the MDGs before we transition to the SDGs. So I want to thank the presenters this morning for being part of a final transition into an entirely new era. As we transition to the SDGs, I want us to start thinking about and marinating on and using frequently so it rolls trippingly off the tongue words like sustainable agriculture, sustainable management of water, sustainable and modern energy, sustainable economic growth, sustainable industrialization, sustainable consumption, sustainable use of the oceans, sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainable management of forests, inclusive sustainable development. These governments and countries are already instituting in their agendas, read their reports, an SDG comparison to the MDGs, and they're already moving fast and furiously towards the SDGs, which is great. This morning is about lessons learned, best and potentially worst practices. Why? Because this should be a frank conversation for what fell through the cracks, what didn't happen as we expected, so that we can properly prepare for the post-2015 development agenda. If we can't acknowledge what's not working or what could be improved in hopefully a constructive space where the reviewers will offer constructive feedback, what's the point of sharing these lessons learned other than to boast best practices? Let's use this as an opportunity to support each other in a constructive analysis of what perhaps isn't working as well as we'd thought. As the President mentioned, in the order, alphabetical, we'll see from Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, Philippines, and Zambia where they're at with their MDGs and where they're going with their SDGs. But I just want to read some news. I'm a communicator. That's what I do for a living. And so I'm constantly reading the news, as are you. And I just want to identify some themes coming out of each country. I've got here a news article that talks about Central Asia's enduring water problems, looking at water and energy shortages in Kyrgyzstan. I've got an article here saying global warming forcing Mongolian nomads to change lifestyles, and it talks about the death to livestock as a result of climate change. I've got an article here from this week, National Catholic Reporter, Philippine bishops mull establishment of climate change desk. And I've got an article here from the Zambia Daily Mail, climate change to cost Zambia And it cites in the first paragraph, UNDP says effects of climate change will cost Zambia an estimated $4.3 billion over a 10-year period. It is affecting these countries, and it is affecting all of our countries, and sustainable development is the response, the answer, the necessary one going forward. What I feel strongly about, and I will reiterate this through the morning, is no matter how much we plan, and you will see some excellent PowerPoints this morning, unless we're communicating both the problem, climate change, and the solution, sustainable development, to our constituencies, our voters, our populations, we will be not ineffective, but certainly less effective with our agenda. So I'm going to encourage as much as possible as we go out into the world to integrate both climate change messaging into our work and sustainable development into our work and language. They have to be integrated. And I'm encouraging the UN to do that as well, because as you know, the UNFCCC has a robust climate change focus on the road to Paris and through Paris. And then ECOSOC and others in the post-2015 action agenda, the development community is strongly moving forward for the next 15 years. Where's the synergy? Where's the overlap? Where's the shared resources? Where's the improved efficiency? How are we going to work together to solve this together? Because if you look at the 17 goals of the SDGs, there's clear overlap with the climate change agenda. I come from a climate community that hasn't historically worked with the SDG development community, and vice versa. So an improvement in integration will be the new normal. I want to lift up a couple of events that are happening this month and last month that are illustrative of where the world is going. I was in Lyon last week for the World Summit on Climate and Territories hosted by the French government. That was the biggest summit pre-Paris of non-state subnational actors, CEOs, governors, cities, mayors, who have come together to say we need to work on climate change, even if the UNFCCC process and the INDCs aren't as effective as we need them to be in keeping warming below 2 degrees. We as subnationals and non-states are coming together to move quickly on this. On July 21st and 22nd at the Vatican, I will be there for perhaps the largest convening the Vatican has ever had of mayors from around the world to talk about climate and sustainable development. The Vatican is integrating those two. It's going to be a 2-day with mayors from all around the world. I'm already starting to do press on it, so hopefully you'll hear more news about that. Jeff Sachs and I are working on a rollout in the United States, engaging 3 cities as pilot projects for the adoption of SDGs. I mentioned this previously in an ECOSOC meeting here. We're now rolling that out this summer, where we'll work with 3 cities to adopt the SDGs and report back to the UN. And lastly, this week in Toronto, the Climate Summit of the Americas is happening. That's also non-state subnational actors coming together, governors, CEOs, mayors, to talk about climate change and sustainability. So the world is moving fast and furiously, lots of plans being developed, and I hope and trust that ECOSOC will be the hub for all of this work so that climate change doesn't become climate conflict with refugees and the conversation ends up in the Security Council. What can we do preventatively with sustainable development so that climate conflict doesn't cause more water security issues, food security issues, resource security issues, leading to violence and ending up in the Security Council? So with that note, for today, this is how it's going to go. Kyrgyzstan will present roughly 10 to 15 minutes of a presentation, the review by Turkey and Russia in that order. And I encourage Turkey and Russia to keep the review within 5 to 10 minutes so that we can then have a conversation, a Q&A about Kyrgyzstan's presentation. And then we'll move on in similar order with Mongolia, reviewed by Switzerland, Japan, and Germany. Mongolia will present for 5 to 10 minutes, the review 5 to 10 minutes, and then Q&A. Philippines, reviewed by US, Malaysia, and Spain. Zambia, reviewed by US and Sweden. So very clear about that order. Each country presenting 10 to 15 minutes, reviews 5 to 10, Q&A, as long as it goes. We've got the morning. And at the end, maybe we can do some synthesis of all 4 country presentations. And lastly, might I add that unlike Broadway, where perhaps you've heard when phones were caught tweeting or taking pictures of actors, some of the actors on stage, whom I won't mention, went down into the audience and yanked the phone from the audience member. I do encourage you to, of course, be attentive, but to tweet anything coming out of this. Again, communication is key. Use the Twitter handle UN ECOSOC to tweet at the President of the UN so that we can get this conversation out in lay person's terms, in the public, on the streets, so that people are adopting, understanding climate change and sustainable development.